It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them, so thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Cameron Gunter, founder and CEO of Peg Companies. Peg Companies is a full-service commercial real estate investment firm known for its unique approach to creating value. A bold leader, Cam has a widespread reputation for successfully guiding his teams through challenging endeavors that many others in the commercial real estate space have shied away from. Cameron's farm-raised work ethic, outside-the-box thinking, commitment to absolute transparency, and past professional experience have helped him to lead Peg to where it is today. A CPA by training with over 8 years mastering the entitlement process and city management, Cameron brings a perspective that helps Peg offer compelling investment opportunities through innovative and cost-effective solutions to the complexities of real estate markets today. With dozens of projects completed and many others underway, Cameron is proud of the market-leading position Peg has secured in its nearly 20 years of operation. He rises to every occasion and finds great fulfillment in spurring economic growth for communities everywhere. Cameron received his Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration from Idaho State University. Cameron Gunter, welcome into the corner office.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
Great to have you here. And we spoke about a few weeks or so ago after I'd had a chance to get to know Peg Companies a little bit and was very much intrigued by your story. And, we like to kind of start where all stories begin, and that's the beginning. And tell us a little bit about, your early family life. I know you grew up on a farm, but, tell us about mom and dad, brothers and sisters, and what those early days were like.
Yeah, as you said, I grew up on a farm in small town Idaho with 5 brothers and a sister.
Wow, big farm family.
Yeah, we were, and my dad was actually just a farmhand. We didn't own the farm.
Right.
He was there to work, and he put the rest of us to work with him. And my granddad also had a farm, so we got to go back and forth between a dairy farm and a dry farm.
Uh-huh.
Working, and I was the second to the oldest, so the oldest and I kind of
did most of the work, I imagine.
Kind of paved the way for all the young troops, and so it was a great upbringing. We worked hard through our lives and learned how to really work. I played sports in high school, and so it would be, as you know, a dairy farm doesn't stop, and so we would 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and in the summertime we'd move sprinkler pipe in our hay fields, and other times we'd get up and feed the calves and take care of the cows in the barn and then go to school.
True family business. And mom was involved in that as well. I mean, she had quite a few youngins to raise, but everybody chips in, right?
Yeah, mom was the wife and mother and taking care of everything at the house, and
Right.
which, having 5 kids, I have twin brothers, but we had 5 kids under the age of 5, and so
Wow.
I think she was pulling her hair out every which way she could.
I can imagine. Well, thank goodness most of them were boys. So, right?
Yeah.
Dad was able to get them all to work. Were you and your older brother kind of like crew bosses? Did you guys, divide and conquer, or was it zone defense? How did you kind of organize the troops, so to speak?
Do you know what? I think it was pretty easy because everybody they learned how to work and they did their own things. And for fairly responsible. I had my youngest brother is like 17 years younger, and so he was. We really didn't get much time with him. He's also albino, which is an interesting dynamic. He also is currently on the U.S. Paralympic track team. So
cool.
At age 36, he's still still going at it, but he's legally blind, and so it's been. We didn't get much time working with him, but the other 5 of us, we were all just working together, and we were the best of friends and the worst of enemies at times.
I can imagine. And was your local school nearby? Did you have to travel far for that? Was it the, kind of the age-old, schoolhouse with multiple grades in one classroom? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so our elementary was in a town about 2 miles away, so not too far. And then our junior high and high school were a combination of about 6 communities, small little communities, and we were actually fairly close to those. So we were only a mile away from our junior high school, and so
it was walking to school for the most part.
We didn't quite walk, but in Idaho. When I grew up, 14 years old, you could get a driver's license. So it's not. And we were driving tractors at 10, so we could get ourselves around pretty well.
You got around. That's awesome. And you mentioned sports in school. What sports did you pursue?
So because it was a small town, I ended up doing basketball, football, track. I even boxed, as small as the school was, I even did some boxing. And then I actually, after my football was the sport I probably did. Well, basketball I did well too, but I was small for a basketball player, but I ended up playing football in college. So I kept going a little ways to further my career. The interesting thing is in my family, my parents, brothers and sisters, nobody had gone to college.
Wow.
And so some had been in the military and different things, but I was the first one in my family, not just my immediate family, my aunts and uncles that had gone to college or that even graduated from college. Since then, I've had brothers and siblings and others, and even aunts and uncles go to college and graduate. So it was a much different situation growing up in the farm because that just wasn't what people did.
I know, right. It was kind of more the legacy of the farm. Thinking back to some of those early lessons from mom and dad, Cameron, what were some of the things that you remember growing up that, kind of impressed you the most, but also, kind of set you on your way for your career? And we'll talk about Peg Companies in a minute.
Yeah, I think for the most part, and you hear this a little bit, the farm life is a fairly simple life, even though it's complicated to raise crops and do some of the things and rely on Mother Nature, not knowing what's going to happen the next day with cows or whatever there is. The one thing that I learned, one is, we were a Christian family, and the church was important to us, or the spiritual side was important to our family, but it was just that it was that simple life, and you're going to have stuff come your way. Just buckle down and deal with it, and somebody's going to be able to help you figure things out. And that's the way it was, and I've seen that in my career through the rest of my life, whether we had challenges in college, whether I've had challenges with my family from a health problems or whatever it is. There's one, we believe in a higher being that's there to help us, and we can get through it with family and perseverance. So it's
not a lot to worry about. You got a place to go with those worries when they come.
That's right. Yeah,
love that. And Idaho State, you mentioned football. Did you go there on a football scholarship, or were you a walk-on?
I actually got a scholarship at a school in southern Utah, but I'll have to confess, I'm not very smart. I was what they call a Prop 48 athlete, so I didn't get a high enough score on my ACT to play Division I football. So I had to go to a junior college in southern Utah called Dixie Dixie College. So I played a year there and then transferred to the school I'd had the scholarship to, which is Southern Utah University.
Okay, got it.
And then I didn't end up playing all 4 years. I got married, and I think life changes when you find the one that you love, and you're gonna move on. So once we did that, I ended up transferring to Idaho State. My wife was going into, at the time, was going to go to pharmacy, and they had a good pharmacy program, but she ended up changing her major and became a dental hygienist. She got a bachelor's degree in dental hygiene. So
now, was she from your hometown, or did you meet at university?
No, we met at university. So she was from a small town in Utah, and so we met down there. She was actually a cheerleader, so
cool. There's a natural affinity there.
You know the storybook.
Football players and cheerleaders. Right. Love it. So, great, terrific. And you've obviously made a major shift in your career. And as I said, we'll talk about your real estate portfolio and all the great things you've done at PEG. But when did you kind of have that awakening? I mean, was there jobs that you had in college that were non-farm related? It sounds like I'm sure the summers you went home, you still went there and helped out. And if you lived at home, you were expected to do so. When did you begin thinking about going in a direction other than farming?
Yeah, the interesting thing, and I don't know how it all came about, even in high school, I had a desire to be an accountant, believe it or not. So I started college with that in mind, is to get an accounting degree, and I ended up finishing with my accounting degree and took the CPA and went and worked just out of college as a CPA in the tax space. I did not like the audit space.
Right.
So I worked in the tax space, and one thing I did realize doing that is I'm not a guy that likes to sit at a desk.
Right.
That's not the right space. But
it was probably ingrained for the first 17, 18 years of your life, right?
Yeah. But I will tell you, it's probably the best degree for me or anybody that's going into business to have, just because it is that language of business. And so it really propelled some of my career. From a CPA firm, I actually went to become, which is interesting path, but I became a finance director for a city.
Right. So you went to upon graduating, you got an accounting degree or a business degree, and then did you go to work for a tier 2 or tier 3 regional accounting firm? Is that your first job?
I went to work for a regional firm, and then
you're doing tax work for them.
Doing tax work.
Yeah.
I did some compilation. Obviously, you do whatever you do. Never did any audits. Maybe a few reviews, but then from there, I took an opportunity to be a finance director, and it was in the city of Lehi when Micron Technology was looking to build a new facility in several different cities, and I got thrown into helping the small town of Lehi try to figure out how to provide some tax incentives for them, and ended up.
And that's Lehi, Idaho, or Lehi, Utah?
Lehi, Utah. Lehi, Utah. It's right in between Provo and Salt Lake City.
Yeah, cool.
So I ended up getting thrown into that mix because the city I was at really didn't have a lot of professionals.
Right.
And I understood enough about some of the tax laws, and I took a lot of government accounting in college, so I understood that, and had a great mentor from the attorney who really drafted the law on creating tax increment in the state of Utah. And so they made me the executive director of that facility, or not that facility, but for the city, as a liaison to that facility. And from there became a city administrator at another city, and then became a city manager.
Wow.
So overall, about 8 years. The interesting thing is, talk about baptism by fire. I was 24 years old and got thrown into that executive director of the second largest tax incentive deal in the United States.
Wow. And that was Micron Technology. They were coming in to invest in the area. Wow.
Yeah. And so we did a $125 million tax incentive deal through property taxes and other types of taxes for their benefit for them to locate here in Lehi, Utah. So, like I say, baptism by fire. I had a great mentor that helped me understand it better, and it kind of sprung my career into being a city administrator in another city, and then eventually becoming a city manager at a different city in southern Utah, before really launching to a different career in construction and real estate.
Well, tell us a little bit about that period of time in public administration. Again, very different pivot from your farming upbringing, but I suppose there are some similarities. With your 5 kids and brothers and mom and dad. There had to be a way of doing things, as you said, best of friends and best of enemies. Did you find that there was anything that you could, kind of parlay from your farm life upbringing into city government, or was it just a totally different experience you had to learn from scratch?
No, it did. I mean, obviously, with cities, they take care of the roads and they have utilities and a lot of those things, because I had been out working and I didn't grow up behind a desk or not in construction. I understood enough about that, and because I understood how to deal with some of the hard things in life, from being on the farm. I mean, you really have to deal with Mother Nature growing up on a farm, because you don't know. I'll tell you, I remember a time when I was young that in Idaho it snowed so much early that we weren't able to get our crops in, our wheat and barley in, and we had to figure out how to get it in that year. We lost all our money, and so you deal with things that are out of your control, and you have some of that same stuff
in politics and bureaucracy.
in politics.
That's interesting. Yeah, I can see the analogy. Wow.
So, and then with us running the city I was at, we had our own power department and our own utility stuff, and so, so a lot of that it helped me, I think, to have the diversity. It wasn't that I just had gone to school to be in public administration, that I had some of the experience doing different things and could figure things out. When I grew up on the farm, it was, look, if something broke, you got to go fix it.
You got to fix it. Yeah. Right. Self-supporting. Yeah.
You can't just call the maintenance guy in and say, "Hey, come fix this thing."
Right.
Especially if you want to go out on the town. You got to do it yourself.
Exactly. I love it. So 8 years in public administration, and then is that when you made the pivot to real estate? And tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, so I made the pivot and went to work as a business development guy for a commercial contractor, who was building office buildings and real estate and like retail buildings and some apartments.
Had he been dealing with a city that you had been based in at the time, or was it a totally different relationship?
No, a totally different relationship. I can't even remember how I got to meet him, if it was a job posting or something.
Right.
But anyway, most of the things I was doing for the contractor was helping developers and cities navigate through city stuff, and in some cases helping them with some tax incentives. And so, did a couple of projects.
That experience, huh?
For him to get the construction job, and I started doing that, and finally realized that, look, I can go do some of this stuff because I'm doing everything for the client. So, and I felt like a great background to be in the real estate space, being a tax guy, understanding accounting.
Big incentives.
Having gone through city, understanding completely the city entitlement processes and how cities work.
Sure.
And then being involved with construction, I felt like, I've got a lot of this experience that we can go and be successful as a real estate company. And so in 2002, at the end of 2002, we started and went and bought a project or a piece of property and started to develop in it. Before that, I was doing a little bit of consulting as a side deal. But the guy that owned the construction company and I we were 50-50 partners in January of 2003, formed the company called PEG. It was called PEG Development at the time, and it was three initials of us. And we went and started doing that project. And as we grew, I think in 2005, that partner that was my original partner got called to be a president of a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so they sent him out for 3 years to go run a mission home out in another city. And so he asked me if I'd buy him out. Asked him if I'd buy him out of the company. And so I bought him out. Once again, that was a challenging part of life. We were pregnant with, I think it was our fourth child at the time.
Okay, right.
And it was a tough
How many do you have
pregnancy.
now, Cam?
We have 5 children, and I have twins. Our first children were twins.
It runs in the family.
So they were our first. So we didn't, once again, baptism by fire. We didn't have any kids. All of a sudden we get 2.
Yeah, that's right. Talk about exponential growth. Wow. So another kid coming away, and all of a sudden there's this opportunity to buy it out. Were you able to do that amicably and productively for both partners?
Yeah, it was a challenge just because it was hard to figure out the valuation of it. And, he had kids that were a little bit in the business too, and he thought about, well, maybe I'll split the assets and I'll take some of these assets and we'll go have my kids be a development
running
company.
that. Right.
And I didn't want, that wasn't my first choice, and so it ended up working out that we got it resolved, and I took the employees that we had that I'd hired on, and one of them's still with me today. He's our COO,
cool.
Who's a great fit for me and our company. So,
and then you eventually bought out the other partner as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there was just 2 of us. We had 3 initials, but there was one of them was his wife's maiden name. So, so I bought him out in 2005, and then I continued to grow the company for the next couple of years, and just we were seeing a lot of growth, and we had a lot of capital needs internally for a company wise. And so I ended up going and selling a piece of the company, 40% of the company, to one of our investors that invested in some stuff with us. So, and then since then I've brought in another partner, and then some of the employees also have some ownership. So
cool.
There's 3 major partners with me. I'm the majority, and got 2 other passive partners that have been of huge support. One of them has been a great mentor to me, because this wasn't something I grew up doing. So
right. Got to understand. So fast forward today, and I mentioned this in your introduction. You've got quite a bit under ownership and management. Just give us a little of a broad spectrum of how big the company is today, employee wise, and your assets under ownership and management.
Yeah, so in the corporate office, we are around 135 employees with accounting and management, development people, construction folks. And then out in the field, I'm going to call it, or out at our properties, we probably have another 1,100. So if we shifted a few years ago to where we didn't just invest in the real estate and develop the real estate, we wanted to control the whole process. So we put management companies in place for our apartment management, and some of our office buildings we manage internally, and then all of our hospitality assets we manage ourselves. So that's really where a majority of the employees sit, is in the hospitality space. We have 40-something hotels that we manage and own.
Do you own any of those as well, or are they all?
Yeah, so we have probably seven of those hospitality projects or hotels are not owned by us. The rest are owned by our investment funds, which we control, which we have investments in as well. So the 7 that they manage third party are really the ones that we got through relationships. But our real goal is to try to drive a better return and a better experience a better return for our investors and a better experience for our guests and our tenants and our residents that are our properties. And we feel like if we control that management side of it on the hospitality and the multifamily, we can deliver on both of those. So
awesome. And how many multifamily units?
We have we've opened a few, but we're over 5,000 multifamily units. So
and those are all owned by you, or do you also manage some of those as well?
All of our multifamily are owned by, have some ownership by us, or we're managing the investment as well. So,
right. Fantastic. So about $2-3 billion under.
Yeah, I think we're just under $2 billion. I think it's like $1.8 billion in asset value that we manage, and so it's been good. We continue to grow. We've had, obviously, in hospitality space, we had our challenges through
particularly
the pandemic.
COVID.
And the benefit we had, honestly, to have us manage ourselves is we could shift fairly quickly and not rely on third party to make the adjustments that needed to be made.
Right. And did you have to furlough a lot of folks during COVID? Were you able to keep your properties open? How did that impact you? Are you national as well in the hospitality properties, or are they mostly in Idaho and Utah?
Yeah, we're national. I think we're in just under 30 states. Cool. We've sold a few assets off, and then we have a couple projects in Canada as well.
Right.
But yeah, we've had to, in the hospitality space, unfortunately, we did have to reduce staff during the pandemic. And the tough thing was is those that you had to lay off are the ones that were not that were the lower income levels. So they were the ones that struggled. And it was tough to get a bunch of them back. And we still have some challenges to get people back in our hotels as employees, and we'll continue to try to be efficient and get folks back. Hindsight, it was probably I don't know, we probably reduced force a little too much. But you just never know. It's so hard to know. I had to do the same in our corporate office, and I think that's the thing that hurt me the most as we've continued to see growth in the company and be able to handle some of what we're doing is maybe reduce staff a little bit too much. And it wasn't a lot in the corporate company, but it was still enough that to start back up again and deal with what we're dealing with was more difficult, because we shifted and started investing into different things in the real estate space that where there are opportunities that we felt like were a good investment for our investors and us.
Right. On the hospitality space, as you came back, did you organize a little differently and look at ways in which to maybe, structure, some of the mid-level staff in a little bit of different way, or have you pretty much just been trying to hire back position by position?
Yeah, that is nice. Like you said, is not nice. It's just something we dealt with, but we were able to restructure things and try to create some better efficiencies.
Right.
And then our housekeeping, we shifted kind of our program a little bit to do some more piecemeal, because let some of these people make more money.
Right.
And so it was good for us to look at different methods of how we do things and try to reward our team members that are there and that we're able to stay, and to have some come back that we can pay more without, we're finally starting to see rates come back in the hotel space, which is good. And I think we're over in most of our properties over 2019 rates, which is good.
Yeah, it's good. Takes a while to get back. Yeah.
But we also have a lot more wage, and we're paying a lot more in all of our costs for our people. So we needed that rate to get higher, and inflation's
Right.
caused us issues across the board. So
Yeah. Well, that restructuring's a real interesting approach. One of our clients actually was a previous CEO guest on our show and became a client in the hospitality space in Kentucky. And, they had multiple hotels, and they also had duplicating units on sales and event planning and so forth. And when they just, had to let everybody go, and when they brought people back, they said, there's a better mousetrap here. And they did kind of more area jobs, right? Since the properties were all close together. And, one of the benefits was, of course, they didn't have to staff up as much, but it gave them actually a lot more flexibility and a lot more motivation to the sales and event people because they had more product to work with. Right, rather than just
right.
being stuck with their own hotel. So, I've seen some real creative things that of the pandemic. As harsh as it's been, it has allowed people to think a lot differently about how to structure the organization.
Yeah.
Well,
Look, we looked at it too. I mean, this before the pandemic hit, we started buying some older hotels, some older extended stay hotels to try to deal with some of the affordable housing issues and affordability in the housing market. And during the pandemic, we were, because we had started that, we saw opportunities in the hospitality space to go buy some of these extended stay properties that had already lost their brands or were losing the brand. And we started converting them to Class B workforce or Class B housing that was affordable in a lot of these markets. And we've had a lot of success in that space. And so some of the people we had in the hospitality space, we've converted into that arena. And now you don't have as many people when you convert to apartments in a property, but we're able to do that well. And
we move forward, being nimble, and as you said earlier, you got to deal with Mother Nature. And if the pandemic's taught us anything, it's just out of our control. And I'm sure a lot of those things you learned early on, has allowed you to be flexible and of course, being able to pivot quickly when these types of things happen. Tell us a little bit about how your leadership, style has changed. I mean, you've gone from obviously, working for a small tier 2, tier 3, accounting firm. You went into, state administration or city administration and government, and now running a fairly large, almost $2 billion valued, company. What would you say are kind of the 2 or 3 key things that you do differently now in terms of leadership that you weren't doing, all those years ago?
Yeah, I'm still learning, to be honest. As you said, it's been different parts of my career have been different leadership skills. And obviously in the city administration, you've got established cities that have their processes that you're just trying to make better. And you've got a different public employee, and they have some protections. And so it's going from just working really by yourself in the accounting space, going to the cities that are far more structured. They've been around forever, where they have processes you're just trying to improve. Then going to the startup company as we continue to grow. It's different because you're trying to build now from even when we were beginning, we were doing a lot of the work. And as we continue to grow and scale, there's just not that ability to do everything we did before. And so it's critical to really be a leader of of our staff that's coming up and trying to do the things that we did. And I say we, I'm talking about our executive staff and my COO has been with me, trying to convey that information over. And it's interesting as I've grown older and been through this from when I was young, that young 25-year-old city administrator trying to figure things out, to now where I'm over 50 and trying to figure things out. I am so grateful that I have the experience and the knowledge to be able to make some of these decisions that when you have these young employees come in, the young team members come in, and they're overzealous and they have this huge desire to
make an impact.
Yeah, to make an impact. and they're working hard to do that, and then you're just trying to help them learn
Right.
the what you knew and what
Yeah.
you've been through,
Yeah.
and they're brilliant folks. Learned a lot more than I did, and a lot smarter. I think that what I try to do is, which I tried to do myself, is to teach them and have them understand and think through big picture, and then drive into the detail and try to help them along. And what I struggle with a lot of times is I'll step in and try to do versus teach. I mean,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
that's always
Yeah.
the hardest thing to
Right.
do.
Right. Because you see
One,
it so much clearly, and
yeah,
yet when you do it, then you take away the incentive for them to learn and the opportunity for them to do so.
yeah, and so it's been, that's been a challenge for me, but I think
Right.
we're continuing to see some success there. That failure's part of life, and I think that's super important
Yeah.
for our people to fail a little bit. Now we're there to catch them. I watched that what's the American Ninja Warrior, and somebody's climbing up a wall, or I don't know what that thing they have, and there's this little platform below them that's about 10 feet below them, and I want to be that platform. So
Right.
if they fail,
Right.
they're not going to fall all the way to the
All the way
bottom,
down. Yeah. Yeah.
but they can fall little ways and learn. It's not going to affect the company. And then we
Yeah.
have a teaching moment for them to
I like
understand,
that.
look, here's a better way to do that. And we learn from that too, or I learned from
Right.
that too. And I asked my executives also to learn from, look, there's a lot of different ways to build the mousetrap, as you said earlier, and let's not be stuck in one
Yeah.
way to do
One way to do
things.
it. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. How would you best describe the Peg company's culture? And in second question, how do you disseminate that? You've got a lot of employees; they're spread out all over the country. Tell us a little bit about your company culture and how you keep that alive for everybody.
Yeah, so growing up on a farm, you just work.
That's where it all starts.
So, I typically I get into the office sometime around 6 or 6:30,
Yep.
because it's the best time for me to get stuff done,
Yeah. No one else is
review.
around. The
Yeah,
phones don't ring.
yeah, and
Emails aren't coming in.
I can read, I can catch up on emails, I can understand where the economy is, and then when people come in, and then I think so. Having said that, I think our culture is hard work
Hmm.
and honesty or loyalty to people, and and relationships, and I think
Yeah.
that's what I want people to understand, and I try to do that through example. And I think our culture overall is that way. We're not. I think people here feel like they can make a mistake and they're not going to be um,
Chastised or punished. Yeah.
chastised,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
nobody's going to look down on them. We're going to try to
Right.
teach them,
Right.
and
Right.
not saying that there's, if you make a big enough mistake, something,
Isn't going to
um,
happen. Consequences. Yeah.
yeah, there's
Right.
not
Yeah.
consequences,
Yeah.
but we want our culture to be collaboration,
Yep.
because this is a tough enough area. We go through different economies, different things, and there's, like I said, the younger people and even the new employees, um, they have knowledge that maybe what some of us haven't thought about.
Right.
And so we try to do collaboration. I learned this at Simplot. So one thing I probably forgot to tell you is right out of college, or during my last year, I worked for Simplot, which was a big organization in the ag business. But
Oh, right.
one of the things that he did very well is he was very big on collaboration.
Yeah.
In his, believe it or not, even the farming fertilizer business, it was so important to have collaboration on how to do different things and work together. And so I learned that early on, is that collaboration is important. And where I was at, they even listened to me. Now, I'm not saying they took everything I said, but they would take some of the things that maybe I'd learned in college or my experience. And I feel the same way, that, look, we need to get information from team members around us to be able to make those decisions. Now, ultimately, the executive or CEO is going to make the final decision if he doesn't feel like it's the right thing. But I think it's important to gather information, and that's where our culture is that collaboration, letting other people be creative themselves and support them.
Love it. What do you look for personally when you're looking to invest in people that you bring on and hire at Peg companies?
Well, my staff's always going to say, if they grew up on a farm and they're from Idaho, they're hired.
There's that immediate association, right? You know what they've been through, right? Yeah, it's not a bad strategy. Hiring after your own background. I like that.
Yeah, so I say that jokingly, but there is some of the traits that I think that come from that, or an ex-athlete, or somebody that's been a first-generation student. But some of those traits are there. I'm not saying everybody doesn't have that, but the thing that I look for is, and it's our culture here, it's that hungry, humble, and smart. And when I say the smart part comes from not IQ necessarily, but smart how to deal with people, and how to deal with team members and outside relationships. And so I think that for us as a company is what we instill. And we actually have a book that Patrick Lencioni book that we have all of our employees. Our new hires, we give them a copy of it and ask them to read it.
Which book is that? He's got so many good ones.
It's called, I think it's called Hungry, Humble, and Smart.
Hungry, Humble, and Smart. Yeah, right. No, exactly. It's so funny. I literally on a podcast just the other day, someone else brought up his name. He's such an amazing way because he tells fables. He tells stories.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right, and so it's very easy to digest. I love it. Do you have a favorite interview question, Cam, that you use with interviews?
Yes, I always ask them relating to this, how creative they are, and so something to related to their creativeness and their ability to think outside the box. And so they may vary, but I try to ask that because our company is about being creative, and I think that's how we've had success here a lot of times. I mean, taking the idea of buying residence in properties or losing their brand, I think is a very creative idea, especially with the affordable housing and with Class A properties. And our team just embraced that and helped try to figure out how to make these things better. And so if you look at where we're at in investing in real estate, I think that creative part of the equation has to be in there, along with hard work, and that's just part of it. So
cool. Well, we're just about out of time, but we always have one last question, Cam, that we ask all our guests, and that's, what kind of career and life advice should you give to someone who's maybe considering, their own corner office location someday, or perhaps an entrepreneur like yourself that wants to start a company?
Well, what I wish somebody would have told me, and they probably did, and I probably didn't listen very well.
What's that?
Is that make sure you know what you're getting into from an experience, and you're able to make the decisions based on some history and apply that. And so as I say that, one of the things I wish I would have known is don't grow too fast, because you hear scale all the time. How do we scale?
Right.
And if you don't have processes and procedures in place, it's going to be very, very difficult to scale. I always say, as you grow, as we grew, we were going down the road at 70 miles an hour, and our wheels and our tires were coming off. We were trying to put them right back on and figuring out a process
keep
to
at the same speed. Yeah, right.
Right. And so it's, if hindsight, I wish that I would have had a little bit more experience in the growth of a company, or somebody would have. And you hear it, you read it, saying, "Look, here we got to fix processes. You got to have processes in place that people can just do and step in." And we're getting there as a company. We're doing much better. It was just a challenge to get there where we're at. But that's the advice that I would give: is make sure you listen if I didn't listen to mentors and get advice on putting processes and procedures in place, and having the right team make sure they execute on them.
Sage counsel. Cameron Gunter, CEO of Peg Companies, thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.